So for years, Democrats have been looking at demographic changes in Georgia and saying there's a big opportunity there for Democrats to win statewide, but it just hasn't happened yet. Trump carried the state in 2016. We haven't had a lot of statewide successes. A lot of national Democrats were disappointed when Jon Ossoff lost his special election. How are you going to change that? Why is this time different?
So first of all, Jon lost because, in part, that was a really Republican district. Georgia is not a Republican state. I just like to say Georgia's blue, just very confused. And we know that the demographics have changed. We know demography isn't destiny, but it is a path. And what we have done differently, what we did in May and what we will do to November, is actually talk to all of the Democrats in Georgia. We know that if you actually talk to them, if you go to the communities we normally overlook, if you talk to independent thinkers who want to be brought to the right side of justice, we have enough voters in Georgia to win an election. Georgia Democrats lose roughly by 240,000 votes. We have more than 1 million eligible, registered, Democratic-leaning voters. We just have to talk to them and invest in making sure they turn out, and that means investing in field.
Pundits who talk about your path to victory often cite getting votes from African-American voters who didn't turn out in 2016. What does the Democratic Party have to do to actually reach those voters and convince them that Democrats will fight to improve their lives?
We say it's two things. One, it's message, and the second is mobilization. We have to have candidates who actually talk about the issues that resonate for all communities, talking about public education and investing fully in public education. It's about having a conversation. You know, Atlanta gets a great rap for having great jobs, but if you aren't in the right part of Atlanta or the right part of Georgia, you are struggling to make ends meet. So it's about having a conversation about a diverse and thriving economy. And it's about good government, like expanding Medicaid in the state of Georgia.
As you've been going around talking to voters, have you heard them thinking about this election differently than in your previous races because of what happened in 2016, and maybe also in Jon's race?
I think that there is a sense of urgency, but there's also a sense of enthusiasm. We know what losing feels like. We are excited about the possibility of winning. And but it's also, I think, part of what we've tried to do in our campaign. We call it a people-powered campaign for a reason. Our mission is to bring everyone to the table. We built the most diverse coalition of voters on May 22nd. We won 76% of the vote, 153 of 159 counties. But what that reflects is that we actually we won every major demographic group. And what I think is universal throughout the state is a sense that while 16 was devastating in both its actuality and in its results, it's also reminded us that voting matters. And that in the state of Georgia, our opportunity is now, because if we miss this one, we're in trouble for a long time.
Yeah.
So, national politics, it's pretty bleak. You read the news all day, you get angry, you're frustrated, there's not a lot that makes you feel hopeful. But when we've gone to states, when we were in Austin, Texas with Beto O'Rourke, your people are fired up, they're ready to win elections, it makes you feel hopeful. When you're traveling around Georgia, what are you hearing from folks, and what can you share with the Pod Save America audience that might make them feel excited and fired up through Election Day?
Well, and I've been to all but 4 counties. I'm going to get there by the end of July. They're all in South Georgia, but I'm on my way. But I talk about the same thing no matter where I am. And, I talk about a woman named Pam that I met, and I know this sounds, like what you say when you do politics, but I really did meet a woman named Pam, who has worked at the Piggly Wiggly for 20 years, is putting both of her daughters through college, raising her grandchild who was just born, and she has never thought about what she wants for herself. She just said, I'm going to work at Piggly Wiggly till I die. She wants someone to invest in her because she wants to start a daycare center. And she was so excited to have a governor actually ask her what she wants. I talked to folks about my brother, Walter. Walter is bipolar, Walter is a heroin addict, and he just finished his 2nd stint in prison. And he loses his health insurance each time he gets out of prison because Mississippi, like Georgia, hasn't expanded Medicaid. But he also can't get a job, and he can't find a place to live. They're excited to know, number one, that I'm willing to talk about my brother because I'm not ashamed of him. He's a mission. And they want a governor who understands that Georgia had the 4th highest incarceration rate. They were all somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's mother, somebody's child. And you may have known, you may have heard, I have some debt. I've made good money and I've spent it on lots of different people besides myself. I have parents that I take care of and a niece that my parents are raising and my grandmother lives with them. And they like knowing, yes, yay, dead. I think what gets people excited is having a governor who can talk about the real lives that people live. And so it's not about mythos and it's not about a slogan. It's about having someone running for this office who's actually lived our lives. And that's what they want.
When you win in November, you'll be the first African-American woman governor in the history of the United States. I know that seems like a shocker. Do you let yourself think about what that potentially historic first can mean? And does it inform the way you think about, does it inform the way in which you're running your campaign?
Being a black woman from the Deep South informs the way I run my campaign. And I mean it in this way. I wrote this book called Minority Leader, and it's available. But the point behind the book was that there are experiences that you have when you are a minority. There are experiences that happen because you're a woman, because you're a person of color, because you're from the South, because you're poor. All of those pieces inform who I am and how I wound up in this space. It was both motivation and sometimes deterrence. And I think about that every single day, which is why I work so hard to talk to so many people. And I work so hard to make sure we're reaching out to communities that are normally ignored by politics. It is exciting to me that I have the opportunity to change what the face of leadership looks like in America in a really dramatic way.
Your future opponents, currently multiple, there will be one at some point, are some interesting characters. They're kind of bumbling idiots. So I have a 2-part question. Why don't your campaign ads feature you pointing guns at teenagers? Why didn't you buy your house at a discount from a lobbyist?
I do know how to shoot. I'm from Mississippi. And the first thing you learn when you learn to hold a firearm is you don't point it at other people.
All right. I'll write that down.
That's Firearms 101. Number 2, I bought my house in 2004. I'm still paying for it. And I will leave it there.
Before we play a game, what can people hear in the crowd and what can people listening back home do to help out your campaign if they like what they heard and they want to support you?
So we say there are 3 things. The first, of course, and this is going to be shocking to everyone who's paying attention to politics, money helps a lot. And it doesn't matter how much, every dollar counts, and we are extraordinarily privileged to have more than 40,000 individual donors to our campaign. Number 2, thank you. See, again, as many cheers as the other stuff, but it's okay. 2 is mobilization. We need folks who volunteer for us. We do texting nationwide. In fact, my younger brother, Walter, he actually volunteers for my campaign, and he sends text messages through Hustle for me. That's important. We do national phone banking, so anyone who wants to volunteer, we will find a way to use your labor here, or if you live here, we also need you to knock doors. And then 3rd is messaging. Going on social media and talking about this campaign, talking about why it matters. We can't tell, I can tell people what I want to do for them, but they want to hear from other people like them. Mm-hmm. And so having folks who don't necessarily share my last name say, this is why you need to vote. So it's mobilization, it's message, and it's money, and that will help us achieve our mission, and we will win.
I just want to say one last thing before we play it again, which is my brother has lived in the Atlanta area for more than 15 years. He is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. He is in the audience tonight.
Hi.
And he has been waiting that whole time for a candidate like you. So
thank you.
I'm very excited for, you're awesome, very excited that you're running. I'm also excited for Democrats in Georgia who are waiting for a chance to win, and they have you to do that for them.
Thank
so
you so much. Thank you both.
The next governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams.